Welcome to the PulpMX Fantasy Show, a brand new name for the same fantasy show. I'm RotoMoto, and in this video, I will go over 5 riders you need to know before locking in your picks for the 2022 season opener in Anaheim, tips for picking the FFL, weather report, the race day schedule, a very early look at what my team could be come Saturday, but first, we typically open up the video with a look at stats and info from the previous race. Since it is the first race of the season, I will instead give you 5 stats, info, and facts from previous seasons to help you nail better scores week after week, and stick around to the end to find out how you could win some autograph and race use memorabilia from your favorite riders. First, you need to decide if you are trying to win the week or if you are trying to win the season. And if you are trying to play for the long haul, then tip number 1 is to pick like you're playing for a championship. Just like the real action on the track, no one wins the championship in the first week, but you sure can lose it in the first week. Last season, the user that won the entire Supercross season was ranked 2,635th after the first round out of a total of 15,000 players. And in fact, he only broke the top 600 a total of 3 times on the season. It is not sexy to play the long game, but if you want to win the big prizes, you gotta play it smart and stack respectable scores rather than going for broke week in and week out. Tip number 2, do not get cute with the All-Stars. Unlike the double eligible riders, there is no bonus for you if you pick an All-Star and they go out and crush it. They max out at 26 points even if your 8 handicap All-Star wins the entire race. And just over half of All-Stars that made it to the night show in 2021 maxed out, meaning even hitting that mark is a bit of a feat. Don't waste your time on the streaky guys like AC or the young guys that hit the ground in the 250 class, and stick to the ones you know you can count to come through with 21 points even when things go sour. The third tip to a good season is to stay away from those 16 handicaps. Those guys are 16s for a reason because they are long shots and they very rarely lead to the highest scores. Picking those guys is gambling, and there is a difference between gambling and fantasy. In 2020, there were 18 perfect 52-point scores on the entire season, not counting Triple Crown rounds. And exactly 0 of those perfect scores came from a 15 or a 16 handicap. In 2021, of the 76 riders with a 16 handicap that were picked by at least 50 people, 57 of them scored a big fat 0, and only 11 managed to score over 40 points. The fourth tip is an oldie but a goodie. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Almost every weekend, there's some guy with a huge handicap that shows up on the qualifying sheet way higher than they have any business being. Twitter lights itself on fire, he gets a huge pick trend before wadding it in the heat and getting a poor start in the LCQ and leaving you with another 0. Do not overthink qualifying. Laying down one fast lap means nothing, especially out of nowhere. He still needs to get starts, stay off the ground, and have the fitness to hold it together through the night. Your final team should not be that much different than the team you had before qualifying. And the fifth, final tip here, follow RotoMoto on Twitter and Instagram. I know this is a cheap one, but there is no better resource than yours truly about what riders are battling injuries, who that guy you've never heard of actually is, and where they came from, and especially for last-minute scratches. After qualifying in a race last season, it was announced Michael Mosman would be out for the night with an injury. I posted about it with over an hour before lockout, but 31% of players still had him when the gates dropped, dooming a third of the field to a big fat 0 that could have been easily avoided. It's not just a self-promo for me, it's a self-help for you. The next section is the ins and outs. This typically houses the riders that are missing the main or coming back from injury. As of the Friday morning, the only riders that are confirmed to be missing are Justin Hill, who will miss an undetermined number of rounds with an undisclosed injury, and Benny Bloss, who had surgery on his ankle right around Christmas. 2 guys that are lining up but banged up are Adam Cianciarulo, who confirmed on his Instagram that he is a few weeks out from a grade 3 shoulder separation, and Justin Brayton, who had a get-off practicing shortly before Christmas. He had some deep bruising, but nothing too concerning for this weekend. All right, on to the 2022 Anaheim 1 picks. I have 3 guys for you to target, 1 to avoid, and a high handicap for you gamblers out there Starting with the little class, working our way up from there. On the 250 All-Star front, I like Joe Shimoda. He's a 2 handicap, which means a podium will max him out and gives him just a tiny bit more cushion than Colt or Craig. In 2021, Joe finished in the top 5 in every single main event of the season and has only a single DNF in his Supercross career. There's really no reason to go higher than Joe, as the 3 lowest handicaps really don't have much threat to knock them off the podium. The rider that I want you to stay away from this weekend is Ryan Surratt. You might see his national number 58 and think if he is good enough to earn that number, he is good enough to finish top 16, but you would be wrong. Ryan earned those points on the back of his 450 outdoor prowess and only made 2 main events in 2021 with a best of 18th at the outdoor like Daytona. At best, there are simply better picks on the board, and at worst, Ryan Surratt has a real chance to miss the main completely in the stacked A1 field. Moving over to the 450 class, the all-star that I want you to look at is Jason Anderson. El Hombre has a 6 handicap, meaning he's looking for a top 7 finish, and that's obviously very doable for him. In 2021, his average finish was in fact a 7.1, and in the past 2 seasons, he has finished in the top 7 in 70% of events. A 450 double point rider that I do want you to look at is Justin Bogle. The HEP Suzuki rider enters 2022 hungry and healthy and back on the mean yellow machine. He's about as sure of a thing to make the main out of this higher handicap class as you can get, but what makes him juicy is his upside. Before injury last season, his last 4 races saw him finish in the top 12 with a best of 9th at Daytona. The high handicap hero of the round given to a rider with a handicap of 10 or more that I think has a realistic chance to score massive points this weekend if you're the type of person that likes to sweat out a little LCQ action for a big payout. Full disclosure, I don't much like anyone with a 10 handicap in this opener. The field is too thickly stacked with healthy riders on competitive teams, but if you're trying to start off the season gambling, I give you Hunter Sales. Last year's East was rattled with injuries, so take these stats with a grain of salt. But Hunter qualified for 5 of 7 main events last season, every single one straight from the heat race with an average main event finish inside the top 12. There's really no reason to reach this early in the season, but I will admit that his 12 handicap is juicy, doubling points even if he DNFs the main. The FFL, or first to the finish line, is an optional wager where you attempt to guess the rider in each main that reaches the finish line and is the first to start the opening lap. If your selected rider in each class is successful, you will earn 15 extra points to your week score, but if you guess wrong, you'll lose 7. The 250 FFL would likely come down to one of the 2 star bikes that are going to be contending for the championship, Colt Nichols and Christian Craig. Craig is known to be one of the absolute best starters in the class throughout his career and led the 250 class last year with an average main event start of 2.7, including 3 FFLs in 7 main events. Personally, I don't think it's worth the gambling this early in the season unless there is a super huge clear-cut favorite, but my money is on CC if you feel so inclined to pick. The 450 side, however, is a mess. AC had the best average start the past 2 years combined, but Kenny has the most FFLs. Then there's Cooper in the middle, being second in both metrics. If AC were healthy, I might bite, but with him ailing, I cannot justify the pick. If you can, however, I think it's a coin flip between these 3. Pick Kenny, but don't get mad if it doesn't go your way. The weather on Saturday is going to be the perfect night for racing on the West Coast. A nice, cool 55 when the gates drop. No significant sign of rain or inclement weather. I don't think the boys could ask for anything better to return to in Anaheim for the first time in 2 years. The race day schedule is your typical West Coast fare. Those of us on the East Coast are going to have a late one. Race day live entertainment beginning at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. local time in Anaheim. I will have the enhanced cheat sheets that is typically reserved for Patreon subscribers available to everyone for free just this week as a way to show you what's inside. Those tend to drop about an hour and a half before the gates do, so look for those around 8 or 8:30 Eastern, but if you prefer the traditional handicaps, those will be available also, usually around an hour before the gates drop. Then the picks lock and the gates drop at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific. After the race, feel free to join me over on my own personal channel for the RotoMoto post-race program immediately following the podium ceremony, where I talk directly with you and other Supercross fans live on camera about the racing, the drama, the fallout, and of course the fantasy results as they become available. Before I show you my early team for Anaheim 1, I want to give a little love to those who made me coming over to PulpMX possible. Maxxis Tire has come on for all 17 rounds of the Supercross season to support me and help me deliver fantasy content to you. By now, you all know Maxxis Tire. You know their MXST motocross tire designed by the king of Supercross and my all-time favorite rider, Jeremy McGrath. The Maxxis MX ST is the newest and most advanced tire in the Maxxis MX lineup, featuring an all-new tread pattern, compound, and composition to provide the stability, predictability, and traction that the upper tiers of motocross demand. The entire SGB Honda team runs Maxxis on their race bikes, including PulpMX show favorites and on-again, off-again best friends and rivals, Alex Ray and Cade Clayson. Available at your local retailer now and also available at motorsport.com. My Thursday morning team consists of Gogo Joe Shimoda at a 2 handicap as my 250 All-Star, Jalik Swoll 0, hoping he makes a big step up in 2022 after averaging a 6th place finish last season. To go with those two, I have 2 upside picks, the first being Team Solitaire Yamaha's Robbie Wageman at an 8. The number 69 had an average finish in 2021 of 13.8 due to his incredible racecraft, and rounding it out is Carson Brown at an 8 also. CB missed last season with injury, but logged multiple top 10s the previous year, so he has a ton of upside at that 8. On the 450s, I'm looking for a safer outing. I have Jason Anderson at a 6 for my All-Star, Marvin Muskin at a -1 handicap, hoping he comes very prepared after being behind the 8 ball last year. Chase Sexton at a -3 is probably coming off my team before Saturday, but if the goal is 8 in the main, we know he's in and no doubtedly has the speed to finish up front and fight for podiums. And my final rider is Justin Bogle with an 8 handicap. His great starts should put him easily into the main, and every now and then he puts it all together for a top 10 finish, which would be a massive A1 score. One last thing I want to tell you about is the RotoMoto Patreon and how to get some of that sweet race use memorabilia like front number plates and autographed gear. If you appreciate and value the work that I do, including videos like this, the injury updates on Twitter, the cheat sheets, etc., the best way to support is by subscribing to Patreon. You can do so for as little as $1 per race, and that automatically enters you into a raffle to win a coveted prize every month. For January, I asked Steve to snag me a front number plate from A1, and he asked if AC would work. Yeah, I think that would work. So $4 a month to support your boy and have a chance to win a piece of history, what's not to love? Beyond that, sign up at the Insider tier or higher, and you also gain access to more content, an exclusive podcast breaking down every single pickable rider on the sheet, an enhanced cheat sheet full of more stats and data than you can imagine to help you make those huge point picks, as well as a private Discord server to talk with other serious fantasy players about riders and strategies the entire race day. The link for that and Twitter and Instagram are in the descriptions below. Thank you as always for watching RotoMoto, and now thank you so much for watching PulpMX Fantasy. May your chiz is chiz. Remember 8 in the main, 0 in the LCQ. Good luck this weekend.